this is not going to be a bitch and gripe session. They're here to hear our concerns. We understand a lot of you are passionate about your property, about your grounds. We're passionate about everything too. We have concerns. We know there's concerns. We're here to listen to them. We don't want yelling and screaming. It's going to be respectful. It's just like there's less than 10% of the population that has a problem here. I understand your problems, I understand your issues, and so do they. But it's just like when a new baby is born into the world. If the baby does something you don't like, you don't scream at him, you don't whip him, you don't beat him. You give them time to learn. And that's why we're here, and we don't need looks, we don't need anything like that. We're going to try and make this respectful. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, I know that we have some issues. If anyone would like to start, we're getting into where they're going to start mowing us every week, which is really nice. I know that they just did some spraying for the weeds, and some of our houses actually are wonderful green yards are all full of weeds, and they're now all looking brown. So there is a conversation that maybe in the future we just don't do the spraying part of the weeds. I had Dulce create a map for them of the homes that wanted to be sprayed. I sent out an email, which is separate from the map of who all gets mowed. So that way, if you wanted your house to be sprayed for weeds, we could create that map for them as well. Why don't we just go ahead and start with any kind of issues or concerns that someone might have, unless you want to start?
Yeah, I would like to.
Why don't you go ahead and start?
Is this on? Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Anybody get their taxes paid? No? No? Okay. All right. Well, anyway, good morning. Thank you for having us, Brenda. As Brenda said, we've been here going on 6 months, and we're getting ready this week to start our weekly service through September. So I am Ted Katina. I'm the account manager over the property. Next to me is Junior Sotel. He's the operations manager. Some of you might have seen him out there. Next to him is Mike Trinidad. He's our director of technical operations. Next to him is Cal Leggett. He is our certified horticulturist. And next to him is Mike Preventure. He is our arborist. Next to him is Jason. He is our spray and chemical manager. And at the end is Bill. He is our branch manager. So anyway, like Brenda said, we are starting weekly services this week. Until last week, we had been coming every other week since October. So as Brenda said, things are starting to grow. I know a lot of folks are going home. So we wanted to discuss any issues that anybody had and answer questions as much as we can. When we did have this townhome about 6 months ago, right before we started, I don't know how many of you all were here, but we did explain to everybody that we are commercial landscapers. We do what's called block landscaping. We go through mow, trim, edge, weed eat, blow everybody the same way. We don't provide any personal services, but if there are any issues, please let the office know. They can email both Junior and myself, and we can address it. I think if you get with Carla and Nick and Brenda and ask them, they'll tell you that we're pretty responsive. Sometimes things slide through the cracks, but if they do, we try to get completed as soon as possible. As far as like stopping the guys out in the field, we ask you all not to do that just because it's a safety issue and it could be a communication issue. And if you do call the office that way, it's on an email. We have a paper trail to follow and to make sure that it was completed or what the resolution was. Okay? So with that, if anybody has any questions, go ahead. Thank you.
Come on up.
Yeah. Someone has to go first.
Here I am.
There you go.
My name is Joe Trissini from 530 Sycamore Lane. I don't want to make a major complaint. Overall, I think you guys have done reasonably well. My problem is when you came and did the spraying a couple weeks ago, you sprayed all the properties around mine, but did not spray mine, okay? I was home, I watched it happen, all right? I went to the office and complained about it, and my yard still hasn't been taken care of. That was one thing, all right? And the other thing is, just last week, when my property was mowed, they mowed the property, nobody ever came and did, they mowed it and they edged. Nobody ever came and weed whacked. There was 10 to 12 inches of tall grass all the way around the back of my house and down the side of my house. So I still have my own equipment from when I took care of it myself, so I went out and weed whacked it. And about the time I was finishing doing the weed whacking, somebody came along with a blower and blew everything off my driveway, but they didn't blow it off the driveway, they blew it up against my house. So I had to go back out and clean it anyway. So overall, yeah, you're taking care of my lawn, but there's a bunch of things that need to be done properly. All right? That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Let me ask you a question, though, sir. When you had the issues with the weeding, did you call into the office?
What, when you were doing the spraying?
Spraying or the weeding, if you had an issue, did you call into the office?
I went to the office
Okay.
at the time of the spraying.
Okay.
I also talked to them about a couple of other yards that hadn't been taken care of that I know that were supposed to be. And the young lady in the office wrote down some notes. She said they're keeping a list of all of this sort of thing. All right, so I did not go after the weed whacking last week or after the mowing last week. I took pictures with the intent of going and showing up, but I never went up.
Okay. Well, how we do on, like I said, if you call in like that, either Junior or myself will address it, or we will have our foreman address it. What the crew does is they'll start their section. We mow on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We have it split in sections. And when the crew's done, they go back checking, weed eating, blowing, etc. So if something is missed, we always ask if you wait like maybe towards the afternoon, because we'll get calls like 11:30, my blowing isn't done, and probably the blowing hasn't been done. But usually about 3:30, we pretty much completed and we're going back and rechecking. So we do ask if you have an issue like that going forward, wait till the afternoon. We are on property 3 days a week. Tuesdays and Wednesdays we mow, and then Thursday, we do detailing, trimming, pruning, spraying, etc. I even had a crew on here Friday doing a little work as well, too. So, if something's missed, like I said, let the office know, and we do our best to get out there as soon as possible to fix it. As far as the spraying, I'm going to turn that over to Jason as far as mixed yards.
Well, before you continue with that.
Yes, sir.
I don't know this to be the fact, but I have the feeling that one of the reasons my yard gets somewhat overlooked is because both properties on either side of me are not taken care of by your company.
Okay.
One is taken care of by the homeowner, and the other one is taken care of by a different service. So I'm kind of an isolated property in the middle of all of this.
Right.
All right.
Understood. And again, we do approximately 300 homes. Is stuff going to get missed once in a while? Absolutely. But the main thing, like I think Brenda and the board will tell you, if something is missed and it's brought to us, we try to address it as soon as possible.
Fair enough.
And Jason, if you could address the possible missed.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like you said, the possibility that it slipped through the cracks is an absolute definite possibility. But as Ted was saying, contact the office at the end of the day, and we'd be happy to come back and make sure that we take care of the situation. I will say that the list is not easy to read sometimes. The print's very small, and it's a large property. So yes, sir, absolutely, we will pay more attention to it.
And one thing I wanted to add, Jason, is I know we got some complaints that people thought we didn't spray because they didn't see a flag in their yard. But we don't put flags in every yard. Jason, can you kind of go over that?
No, the state law, Florida state law states that we're to put a flag about site distance. We don't have to flag every home that we treat. That just wouldn't be possible supply-wise. But state of Florida says that we place one flag within sight of the next flag that we place out.
So therefore then, if there's not a flag in your yard, it doesn't mean that it didn't get done.
Correct.
Would it be helpful if we created, instead of this map that you guys would use, maybe several maps of streets that are bigger so that they could see them, but they would be multiple of them.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so we can do that to make the numbers bigger and make it a little easier,
Great, Brenda.
Dulce.
Also, another couple of complaints on fertilizer and spraying I've gotten is, well, they only did like a couple swipes in my yard, but Jason, you can kind of go over that kind of equipment we use and how far out it reaches, please?
So the sprayers that we utilize, they have a 10-foot boom on them. They have 5 nozzles on them, so they cover a pretty good 3 passes in most of these yards, and we're to the property line. So it does cover a good bit of area.
Get on the fertilizer with the...
Same with the fertilizer, 10-foot spread.
When you do the pest control, is that a spray or is that granular?
It's a spray.
A spray.
Okay.
Dwayne Schaefer, 373 Hawkeye Lane with my wife Claudine. And I guess I'm going to be one of those bitchers today. I had you guys out in December after you sprayed because I still had tons of weeds in my yard. And of course, it was all my fault because I was accused of either watering too soon after or watering too much. And you didn't come back and fix the problem. You said, we'll see you in 3 months. Secondly, 3 months later, a couple weeks ago, I watched you guys spray, and the houses behind me, you made 2 passes. 2 houses next to me, you made 1 pass in the back. Didn't see anybody do anything in the fronts. And again, you missed my yard. But looking at my neighbor's yards, I'm glad you did. And I've now hired somebody else to spray the weeds in my yard, and they're actually dying. And I never had that problem before when I had True Green either. You knocked off one of my downspouts, which was screwed on about 1.5 feet off the ground, and left it lay. You've gouged my yard because they're spinning around too fast, and the mower deck on one side digs in. And I'm totally unhappy with the way you guys have taken care of things. And I want out, along with at least 3 of my neighbors who want out of this program. And so don't come and tell me there's only a few people unhappy in here, because I've talked to a lot of people who are unhappy with the way you're doing the yards and want out. So don't try to sugarcoat it and say everybody's happy. They're just a couple little things here and there. No, I would rather have the person who mowed my neighbor's yards before mowing them, and they would rather have him back too. But I guess we're stuck with him unless the board has the good sense to let us opt out of this program.
What's your house number again?
373 Hawkeye.
I believe I remember, Junior, didn't we speak with this gentleman, and we did
Yes.
talk about your dollar weed, and I believe that was, what, in January or February, and the same thing I told you.
December.
Was it December? I'm not sure. You shouldn't, in the dry season, and Cal, I'm going to let you talk about that a little more, you shouldn't have dollar weed. Cal, I'm going to let you talk about dollar weed.
Yeah, I mean, dollarweed is a semi-aquatic weed, so if there is dollarweed in a yard, it's typically going to be from over-irrigation. So if we directed you to adjust your irrigation, that's usually fixing the underlying problem through reducing irrigation. Treatment's going to remove it, but if you don't fix that underlying issue of excess irrigation and soil saturation, it's going to continue to return.
Well, you could make all the excuses you want, but when I had True Green spraying my yard, I never had dollar weeds anymore. So you guys aren't doing the job.
Daniel Plummer, 463 Peachtree Lane, Wildlife, Sarah. You guys came this last week, you trimmed our bushes in front of the house. One bush was this high, one bush was this high. And I was like, God, that's not good. Also, they knocked down part of our flower bed wall and just left it. I called the office and I complained and I said, what's going on with this? This isn't right. And they agreed with me. I talked to Nick. Nick said to get a hold of them Monday, I think it was. So people came out to fix it. I saw them. I talked to them briefly. And I said, I just want the bushes even height. And they're like, okay. So they went ahead and they did that and it looked okay. But then after they left, we looked and we noticed that there was grass like this high in front of that flower bed wall that they had to have seen and they didn't bother doing anything about. Our downspouts have been knocked off a couple times. I've had to put them back on. They mow by the side of the house and they use, I guess, a stand-out mower. And it's probably too tight to get in close to the foundation. And they come back, I guess, and do a weed whacker later on. But the height is inconsistent. And I'm not happy with the program at all. I was taking care of my own yard before, and it looked a lot better than what you guys do. Oh, and today, they came and edged, and we just came back, and they'd edged, but did they blow the stuff out? No. There's dirt, and there's weeds, and there's stones all over our driveway and our lawn, and I'm not happy.
Well, a couple things, sir. We actually went back and sent a crew back. I actually had a crew working out of Jarvis Snow at another property nearby, so I had them go back on Friday. You know, we could have waited till Tuesday, but as a courtesy, we went back Friday to trim your shrubs. But getting on shrub pruning, a resident asked us at the first meeting, well, if they prune my shrubs, you know, how I want this, can I ask them? I said, absolutely, but if not, we're going to prune shrubs to industry standards. You know, we're going to round them, we're going to manicure them. Everybody's idea of pruning shrubs is different. That's why, again, I talk about the personal gardener. You said you took care of your house. Well, yeah, you can take care of your house. You can prune it exactly the way you want. Again, we do about 300 homes, so we pretty much prune everybody to an industry standard. We don't have special ways that we prune this plant, that we're going to prune that plant, as long as it's manicured and looks good. That's how the guys are trained to prune. As far as your blowing, I mean, they just edged this morning, you said. Well, maybe they haven't blown it out yet. I'm not sure.
Why don't you have somebody coming right behind them if they're doing that with a blower to blow it out? That doesn't make any sense. And as far as the trimming goes, the hedges have to be a certain height. They have to be a certain height below the windows. That's a park rule.
Okay.
And that's not being done.
Okay, we'll go by and look at your house for sure.
Well, it's okay now. Like I said, they came back and fixed it, but I had to call. And the fact that they knocked down part of our flower bed wall and just left it, that's not acceptable.
Right. I agree with you, absolutely.
Carol Fink, I live at 344 Badger Lane. Okay, is that better? Before I left home this morning, before I came here, I counted over 20 holes in my skirting where they did it with their weed whacking or whatever it is. Also, there's two big where they ran their lawnmower into the skirting. It's all mangled and crushed up, and I have big holes there so animals can get in. That's my big complaint. My friend Jack is not physically able to go out and fix this stuff, and neither am I. So I want to know, are they going to fix it?
What is your address, ma'am?
344 Badger Lane.
Yep, we will go by and look at it.
Thank you.
Corky Boyle on Pelican Lane. Back in the early fall, one day I realized that someone had killed all of the complete perimeter all the way around my house, coming back about, anywhere from 6 to 12 inches. And as obviously the grass was killed, I had no idea that that was going to happen. But obviously, I presume the reason for that was so you do not have to trim. Is that correct?
No, sir.
Then why was it killed?
I don't know the specific plan or area, but we do spray weeds around shrub beds. We pull weeds inside shrub beds, but we do not spray shrubs. We spray around, like in open areas, per contract.
Okay, I guess you just treated my house a little different then. But I can guarantee you, and you can look today, the grass is still dead all the way around my house.
Yeah. And what is your address again, sir?
It's at 259 Pelican Lane.
So I can speak on that. They were doing like a border around the houses to help with not getting close to the skirting and everything. And once they did that, which we didn't know, when they did the first half of the house, I think they went all the way up to garden. Once we realized that they did that, we asked them not to do that in the future, and so they have not done that moving forward, and they're not going to continue to do that where they were going around the borders or the plantings, the bricks around your trees, that kind of thing. I'm sorry that your grass hasn't come back yet. I was kind of hoping that all the grass would eventually come back, but they are not doing that. We've asked them not to do that in the future.
I guess I'm kind of surprised that this gentleman did not know that that was going on.
Duke Miller, 564 Hammock Trail. My wife, Judy Miller. We've been here about 13 years. And in the past, I have a poured concrete, I guess, edging around the front of my house. We've always had edging with a weed whacker around this, so the mowers have been kept at least a foot away from it. Since you've taken over, the mowers have run over the top of this edging. They've cracked it at least twice. They've chipped it multiple times, completely ruined it. It'd be nice if you'd put a new one in, or at least pay for the damages and try and get this replaced. I've had someone come out, look at it. They agreed it's a mess. You've damaged downspout, I don't know what you call them, the edgings or the, I don't know what you call them at the end of the downspouts. I've had cracks around the sprinkler heads that have been damaged. Person came out and looked at all these. They said, oh, we'll get someone out there right away and look at them, which no one has ever showed up. This was several months ago. They continue to run over the top of the board concrete edging around the house. One day I went out there and watched them. As soon as the mower looked at me, he immediately stopped, went across the street, left it. Someone finally came over with a weed whacker and finished the yard, and that was a mess. Left the yard up and down all over. It was very uneven, but he wouldn't even come back over and finish the yard. The yard looked a mess, but he's just completely ruined that edging around the front of the house. It looks a complete mess, and no one seems to care.
All right, sir, did you call the office?
Yes, they've been called multiple times.
Okay. As long as we have a record of it, we can look at it.
Nobody's bothered to look at it. Thank you.
And please, folks, remember, again, we've only been here 6 months. I think, Brenda, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first commercial landscaping company
Yes.
you have?
Yep.
You're used to more of a personal gardener job out here where, they took a little more time. But again, in order, and we talked about this in the first meeting, in order to give you a very good value for your price, I think it's $55 a month, Brenda, for all the
Yep.
services we provide, which is a fantastic deal. It's not going to be that type of service. I mean, of course, we want to do a good job. If there's something's missed, you let us know, and we'll take care of it. But again, it is a large property. We've been here 6 months. We haven't even made it through our first summer yet. Sometimes it takes a good year to learn a property, learn the little tricks and little things here and there to, make things a little easier. That's kind of a learning process in landscaping. I've been doing it 36 years, and there's still things I learn every day. Things like downspouts at HOAs, it is a problem. Sometimes downspouts are too far into the grass, and they are, subject to damage by our mower. But, if we break something, we know we broke it, we're going to replace it and fix it. If you let somebody know, just, we can address it. Also, I did want to talk about siding, and Mike, I'm going to kind of turn that over to you, because one thing I did recommend at the last meeting we had is that on 6-inch borders, we recommend to have some type of border, because a lot of the siding is old, a lot of the siding was damaged before we got here, and I know we have damaged some siding, but if you're going to put a mower or a weed eater up in there with no border, there's always an opportunity to damage that siding. So Mike, I'm going to let you talk about that a little bit.
Sure. All right, yeah, so in a lot of communities, we actually propose a 6 to 12-inch buffer, and that prevents our mowers or our equipment from coming into contact with any of your obstacles, i.e. siding, any of your scallop, landscaping borders that you might have as well. In many cases where the board decides not to create that standard, we actually create the buffer ourselves, so there's not an issue with us damaging your siding. As you know, having to replace the siding, getting it to match up is not always easy or ideal, and it's never a perfect match, right? So that's one of the things we wanted to talk to the board about, is creating that standard, because either we're going to come into contact with your obstacle and eventually wear that siding out and or break it, damage it, or there's going to be a gap. So we need to kind of figure out exactly where we stand in that process.
So that's a possibility that we could have a conversation about everyone putting bricks or something around their homes or creating some kind of a border just to help with the siding issue. We can have a conversation about that amongst ourselves.
I'm Deborah McLean-Brine from 491 Sycamore. And I'd like to start out by saying I appreciate that the management team is here and so well represented today, but I think there's a very big difference between what the management team discusses with our board of directors about what service you have to offer us and exactly what the employees do in the park and what we see happening every day. I don't know whether a different level of supervision can happen when the services are being given, but I have watched my property being serviced ever since you started, and I have never seen lawns cut so fast. The workers move through, spinning those machines, digging up the grass, and I know they have a lot of properties to cover, but these excuses don't cover for the damage that we're seeing in our properties. And we've all had other lawn services take care of us before, and we haven't had these problems. So when you talk about the weed whacking, well, somebody else has weed whacked those properties before and not done some of that damage. The other thing that I think is incorrect is that in your contract you said to us that you were going to do weeding. That was one of the things that attracted me to signing up for the service. However, there is no weeding being done. They are going through with a product that's like Roundup that kills the grass in the gardens. None of it is ever removed. So I am working as hard on my property now as I ever did, and finding patches of where this Roundup product has been spilled or whether there's been overflow, and then the lawn drinks it. And so I have dead patches of grass where I used to have lovely, rich grass. That just simply is not good at all. And I don't understand how you can spray this Roundup into our gardens and not have that gradually be absorbed by the shrubs that are there. The guys that do the blowing, oh my gosh. They are looking up at the sky and blowing and stuff. They blow half the stuff back onto the lawn. You go out and it's still under the cars. Just your employees are not taking the time to do things in the way in which you have presented to us that your company is going to service us. And I think if that could be dealt with, we would be content to stay with this contract. But right now, many of our lawns are in way worse shape than they have ever been. I've got tons of weeds still. So that's what I have to say. I respect the fact that you're here today and you're willing to listen to our issues, but I think that there's something that needs to happen in the company between yourselves and your employees. Thank you.
Ma'am, excuse me, are you talking about weeds in your shrub beds or in your turf?
I'm talking about both,
Okay.
all the grasses and the shrub beds, and whoever it was that stood up and said about the trimming of the shrubs. I agree. I had my shrubs all evenly cut, and I came back and they were like this. Even the same thing, boxwoods. You have an arborist. As far as educating around how to trim shrubs, it isn't a great big electric saw that just whacks across the front. Some of the pieces are still hanging, they haven't been removed, and they pick up the shrub cuttings that are on the grass. But if you look at the shrubs, all the cuttings are still in the garden behind. Nothing has been cleaned out. They've zipped by with the saw and picked up what was on the grass. So it's just from trying to do everything way, way too fast.
Is there a possibility that for maybe the next month that someone could just be here to oversee what everybody's doing and just kind of be an on-call manager?
We have a foreman on the crew that runs the crew and inspects, and then Junior and myself, we have someone else, Amador, I think you've met him, that is also on property every day whenever the crew's there.
So the person who's in charge, maybe they could stop in every morning at the office and make sure that, we have their phone number so that we could, if we have a problem, we can not only let you know, but be able to find them as well so that they could directly go?
Yeah, but when we always recommend that you email Junior and myself, and that way, again, we have a record of what the issue was, then we can take care of it. Like you asked me about some pruning, then we took care of it, and I pruned it.
Right.
We pruned it, and I let you know. That way, the problem's resolved. I mean, the guys do have a schedule that they need to stay on. Sometimes there's a communication issue as well.
Right. Is the foreman working as well, or is he somebody?
Yes,
I think we need somebody that's not working as well, that maybe could just follow behind and just double check,
Yeah.
possibly.
Yeah, the way the contract's set up, like I said, and again, it goes back to giving you the best value for your money. We have to have our foreman working out there, but there's plenty of supervision out here. I mean, some folks they might not see it or see us all the time, but there is supervision out there.
Okay.
And Calvin, I'll let you talk about, spraying Roundup in beds, and we don't spray, obviously, Roundup in turf. We use a different chemical, but can you talk about that, Cal?
Yeah, so in the turf, we're using selective herbicides that are not going to kill the turf. However, one of the issues that we have out here in many of the yards is a mixed turf. So you've got a mix of Bahia, St. Augustine, some common Bermuda, and then a wide variety of weeds. So when we did, and I believe we brought this up earlier too, when we did our weed treatment, there were plenty of yards where it looks like we killed the turf, but it's because there was no real true turf there. It was a mix of different weed species. So I think that that's something that we mentioned earlier about maybe adjusting the way that we treat weeds. I mean, if you look at even just the common area in front of this clubhouse here, if we were to do a weed control application in that median over there, there's going to be a lot of just bare dirt. Even though right now it looks green, it looks like turf, there's a lot of mixed weed species in there that make it difficult to treat, especially in those Bahia yards, not necessarily the St. Augustine. And then regarding treating in the shrub beds, we use non-selective herbicides in there, some of which is the glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup, but we're only using that to target the weeds. We're not spraying it over the ornamental plants. And the discussion about it accumulating and being taken up by the roots, it's actually deactivated. Once it comes into contact with soil, it binds with the soil and doesn't move into the roots. So, but it is a very effective product. And again, we're only using it in the beds and not spraying it in the turf.
One other thing to add is that we don't control the irrigation in your turf, so Some people overwater, some people water how they're supposed to, some people don't water at all. So a lot of yards out there that you saw that were very dry today, Cal, correct?
Yeah, quite a few dry yards. I mean, we're entering our drought period. I'm sure you've seen we don't have a whole lot of natural rainfall. So because we don't control the irrigation, it really, it depends. It varies house to house, the irrigation conditions. And there's yards out there that are brown because it's just very dry. So the guidance in this county, I believe right now, it's twice a week that you're limited to. So twice a week run time. I don't know the specific days. I think it's address based. The amount is a ½ inch of irrigation, which typically on a spray zone, if you've got the sprays, you're looking at about 30 minutes of run time or so. And if it's rotors, you're looking at about 45 minutes. Those are just kind of general guidelines. But that's each run time, and that ½ inch of water twice a week is the University of Florida guidelines. And that's going to help wet enough of your soil to keep those roots alive and keep the turf actively growing.
So, and then part of that too is whenever there's irrigation and bare dirt, the first thing to populate there are weeds, right? So it's going to be a process. If you have a yard that is not in great shape, it's going to take a while for it to propagate and kind of flush out those weeds. An option would be to put in sod plugs and/or sod itself, right?
And that's the St. Augustine sod. I mean, if you drive the community, by far the most attractive, healthy lawns are the St. Augustine turf because it grows dense if you irrigate it and you fertilize it properly. Bahia, no matter how much you fertilize it, how perfect you maintain it, it's never going to be as thick and as dense as St. Augustine, and you're always going to have weed control issues because of how open that turf is.
So I have a question. The crewman, he speaks English, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then we mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again. The crew that comes out, is it the same crew every time? Yes. And then one of the questions that I had was also, that when the crews get done early, that they take a break instead of sitting. I think that's another reason for having somebody out here. It's been brought to my